You know, the Ravens come back into this week with another one of those like kind of business trips, right? They got to take care of business. They need a little help. They can get into the playoffs after Christmas Eve. They can make Christmas a little bit more jolly for the Ravens flock. But y'all know, after these last couple weeks, man, some of these business trips just ain't been the business as usual. All right, what is going on, good people? DJ is here from Flock Nation Speaks, your favorite Baltimore Ravens podcast. Baltimore Ravens podcast. Look, Ravens, they coming in playing the Falcons, and here's the thing, bro. I know I know for a fact, I got full confidence in this team that the Ravens gonna come out here and they're gonna take care of business against the Falcons. You know why? Because that boy Andy Isabella has been upgraded to the 53, baby. And I'm telling you, that was all we needed. Ravens Flock Nation, that was all we needed, bro. That was all we needed. We needed Andy to come in. We needed a reunion with Sammy Watkins, and then the chemistry with Demarcus Robinson, and then Tyler Huntley gonna look like last year. Like we ready. We ready. I'm just gonna tell y'all. I'm just gonna throw it out there, and we're gonna see what happens when they come back. We're gonna see. But anyway, what's going on, good people? Flock Nation Speaks is back once again with another episode right here. Another preview for the Ravens versus the Falcons, week 16. The Ravens can get in this week, but will they do the necessary things, specifically win? That's the biggest part of it. But will they do the necessary things to, as I called it last week, survive and advance, right? Right now, you're in the survival mode, not because you're out of the playoffs. That's the thing. It's the crazy part. Somebody has said it's going to take more work for the Ravens to miss out on the playoffs right now, considering, than it will for them to make the playoffs. So, will they do the necessary things to get into the playoffs? And it can start with this week against the Falcons in a very, very cold, bitter, like $8 game right now. if you want tickets. But real quick, you can always watch or listen to Flock Nation Speaks on Facebook, on YouTube, if you want to watch, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Google Podcasts, if you would like to listen. But man, let's jump into it. Like I ain't gonna play with y'all no more, right? I'm not even gonna joke with y'all no more. For the rest of the show, we getting down to business, just like the Ravens need to do on tomorrow on Christmas Eve, because they need to make sure Christmas is special for the Ravens flock. I'm telling y'all. So Ravens Falcons, the NFC South has not really been kind to the Ravens this year, right? Like they play, of course, the Panthers game was terrible. The Panthers game was absolutely awful. The Bucks game was okay. Like it started off really, really, really rough, and they figured it out. They figured out a way to turn it around and make it work. And then, of course, with the Falcons coming in, that's another one where you're like, you don't really know. It could be tough. It could be tough, but it shouldn't be tough, right? If we get the Ravens team that if we get the potential of what the Ravens team could be, it should be fine, right? It should be fine, but yeah. It's been a crazy season. I'm blanking on my last NFC South team, and since this division is very much so winnable by everybody at this point, it's wild. Oh yeah, the Saints game. That's right, the Saints game. This season, as short as this season has felt long too. Like it's weird. Like I don't know how to describe this season. It's been crazy, man. It's gonna be over before we know it, but at the same time, like we still in the thick of it. It's crazy. But coming into this Falcons game, once again, I've said this multiple times before. I think the Ravens got to come in and just, get the job done, right? They got to go in, get the job done, and get out of there. I said it last week. I've said it the last couple of weeks, especially with Tyler Huntley in their quarterback. By hook or by crook, you got to win this game. And kind of like I said last week, it's going to have to be on the defense's number, right? It's going to have, the defense is at the advantage right now. You playing against a rookie quarterback. You playing against a little bit of an injured team in the Falcons. They kind of underachieved, if you can call it that. And there's a lot of work to be done on the Falcons side, but we've seen it this season. The Ravens have had, I think, every game that the Ravens have lost, they should have won those games, right? They were either in those games, or even if it didn't look good, like last week didn't look good, but it's like one play could have changed the tide. One good offensive drive could have changed the tide. Maybe taking your points here could have changed the drive. Maybe an adjustment in coaching could have changed the entirety of that game. If the Ravens run the ball more than one time in the fourth quarter, it's possible they score on a run play with the two guys who are literally averaging pretty much a first down per carry. It's pretty, 10 to 13 is a little bit different than 13 to 3, right? You kind of get that momentum going, you get that mojo going. You know what I mean? Like sometimes this year, it feels like Dr. Evil done stole the Ravens mojo, right? And they got to go find Dr. Evil, and they on this wild goose chase trying to figure out everything, and then there's everything kind of thrown in your way, and it's like, and it feel like Dr. Evil was a step ahead, but Ravens got to be Austin Powers in this one, right? Like they got to find a way. They got to find a way, They got to be the coolest guy in the room right now. They got to find a way, but the Ravens, it's been a roller coaster ride. And then on top of that, you got the injury to Lamar Jackson. And the issue with the injury to Lamar Jackson is we don't really know how serious it is. Only Lamar Jackson knows how serious it is, and I think the Ravens know how serious it is. But, of course, he's not going to come out and say anything about it. And John Harbaugh is so hush-hush about everything, we might not ever know. He blatantly comes out here and tells fibbies all the time. He's always fibbing. And we might not ever know the real extent of this injury. So the hope is not the hope, because here's my thing. When I was thinking about it, I was like, my thought process was, as much as I wanted Lamar Jackson to play in the Falcons game, I said if the Falcons game is supposed to be the week that he comes back, I hope he waits an extra week, right? For the simple fact of, let's let him be 100%. Let's let him be 100% and ready to go for the run that I think all the Ravens flock, and of course Lamar, and of course the rest of the team wants to make, right? So we'll see what happens on that front. But in terms of the Falcons, first things first, Tyler Huntley got to play better, right? There was some missed opportunities for Tyler Huntley, but at the same time, there was some stuff that just wasn't open for Tyler Huntley either, right? There was some stuff where for example, he ran an RPO and it felt like he could throw it away, and he legally couldn't throw it away, in the bounds of the play. So, there's a lot of different wrinkles that goes into it. But once again, this is the time for coaching to showcase why they're still employed right now, because Tyler Huntley is your backup quarterback. Don't put him in harm's way, but also put him where he needs to be so he can be great. Last year, regardless of what we think about how the game is called for Tyler Huntley versus Lamar Jackson, last year, the Ravens did a good job of calling a good game. Like the Ravens did a good job of well coaching up the offense, right? The offense was well coached up, right? They did exactly what they need to do for Tyler Huntley to be successful. If it's one read and go, that's what it was, right? If that, sometimes that's what you got to do. And now, that's the thing, going back to the whole Giro situation and the interview that the interview he gave this week, there's no accountability by anybody, right? It seems like, to me, everybody is pointing the finger at everybody else except for the defense, because at least the defense is playing pretty well. But on the offensive side, everybody's pointing at everybody else. Well, Lamar's hurt, so that's the issue. And then Lamar's like, well, I'm hurt, so it's probably the coaching. Then Greg Roman says, well, it's the players not executing. And the players say, well, John Harbaugh should have went for that fourth down. And then John Harbaugh say, but the players didn't run the right routes. And then the players like, well, these routes are terrible, right? So it's just like it's a constant, like it's the Spider-Man thing. Like it's a constant point everywhere. Everybody's pointing at everybody else instead of working to fix this, to find the solution. That's my biggest issue right now is, the coaches need to be the one to fix the issues that they've been having over and over and over again, right? Guys haven't been open for years, and you haven't given yourself enough talent on the offensive end for guys to be open anyway. So now it's up to this offensive genius in Greg Roman to figure out how he can get guys open. You got the running game that you want to have now. Now it's time to enact that efficient passing game that we talk so much about. So offensively, that's my key. Once again, you got to have a good running game, but continue to lean on what's working. That's been an issue for the Ravens for 4 years now, right? Like literally, and I mean, you might as well say 5 because we about at the end of this season. The biggest issue has been the Ravens go into these games that they need the most, and they completely shift their entire identity, right? The Ravens come into the Ravens get ready to take their driver's test after they've been practicing as DJ. They come into this driver's test and they Julio. Like, why? Why are you changing your entire identity? You come into the driving test with a fake ID. Why? You're good enough to do what you got to do. Why are you changing your identity when you need it the most? That goes back to coaching, right? That goes back to play calling. Same thing last week. What was the biggest issue last week? The run game was great. The defense was great. Special teams, like, right? The pass game, right? That was the issue. But if the pass game is an issue and you're struggling because it's cold and it's windy and all this, but you're averaging 9 yards a carry, why are you not running the ball in the red zone at least one time? Give the ball to Gus, who literally rarely ever is going to get knocked back. Give the ball to JK, let him make a cut, right? Like, where is that at? Where are the wrinkles to this offense? And, that's the thing. Duvernay's out for the year. So that brings back in Sammy Watkins. That might bring in Andy Isabella. Who knows, right? He'll probably still be sitting on the sideline. But, you got a chance for Sammy Watkins. You got a chance for Andy Isabella. I don't know what it is, man, but I want some, like, and I may be insane, but offensively, I want someone to jump out at me. I don't give a darn if it's Sammy Watkins, right? Like, we can talk all we want to about these guys that we have. There's not a lot we can do at this point. It's either sign Odell and hope that he's healthy enough to be the guy that moves the needle, or this is what we got, right? This is what we got. So my thing is, I hope anybody moves the needle, right? I don't care if it's Sammy Watkins. It's tough to say Deshaun Jackson because he's not going to be on the field enough to probably be the guy that we need him to be, right? Of course, Duvernay's gone. Of course, Bateman's gone, right? DeMarcus has shown glimpses and somebody's got to show up, right? Like somebody has to show up. Somebody has to be the guy. I kind of hope for some crazy reason, some out of the blue reason, that it ends up being Andy Isabella. I don't know why. I just hope that something's got to break, right? It might even be Mark Andrews turning into the guy that he wants to be, right? The guy he was last year and the guy that we've been clamoring for this season. It might be him doing that, him being the guy, him being him, if that's what it's got to be. But somebody on this offense besides Lamar Jackson, who's not suiting up tomorrow, someone has to be that guy. This is your chance. You want a contract extension? You want to be here next year? You want to showcase that you're worth whatever you think you're worth on the market? This is your chance. I've been saying it all year long. We've been waiting on. This is what we've been waiting on. Now it shouldn't have taken this long. I get that, but this is what we've been waiting on. The young guys to cook, right? The young guys to get their opportunities. Now they're getting their opportunities. They're not open. they're not schemed open, and they don't pose any sort of threat to the defense. So somebody has to showcase that I am a legitimate threat. Deshaun has helped with that, and I don't even care if they run Deshaun on decoy routes. Going back to the coaching again, because I think that's the biggest factor in this game. I think, honestly, this is my true and honest opinion, coaching is bigger than anything else on this Ravens team. And the lack of coaching consistency and the lack of situational awareness, that's going to be the thing that is going to make or break this team. But for this team to win or to lose games, especially without Lamar Jackson and without the magic that he creates, coaching is going to be at the forefront, right? Coaching is right up here. Coaching is the biggest thing, because coaching is the thing that is the issue in the playoffs. Coaching is the thing that is the issue in losses. Coaching is the thing that is the issue when you have a backup quarterback and you got to find a way to win by any means necessary, right? Coaching seems to be the issue. My question is, Ravens, can you outcoach the Falcons this week? Because like we said, we don't even got to talk about the defense, because we know the defense is probably going to get a turnover this week, right? Especially against a rookie QB. Deshaun's a different beast last week, but a rookie QB, they're probably going to get some sort of interception or fumble or something, right? They're going to get a turnover. The defense is going to put you in situations to win this game. The offense has to find something, one big play, one big score, something like that to change the tide when it comes to the offensive end, instead of putting the defense in bad situations now. So, like I said, I think this game, to me, the biggest key is going to be coaching, because I don't think Ravens fans can be comfortable with how this team looks if the coaching doesn't improve. And if the coaching improves, let's be honest, the team's going to improve, right? Even if it's just by a hair, and then when Lamar comes back, it's by leaps and bounds. But the coaching has to improve. They have to get out their own way. Going for it on fourth down in situations that don't make sense, don't do it, right? Not leaning on your run game when that's what you want to be. And that's the thing. That's the other thing about this whole thing. And that's why I said I can't blame the personnel as much as I blame Greg Roman, because number one, you're averaging 9 yards a carry and you don't run the ball in the fourth quarter, right? Number two, you ask for all these tight ends and you don't utilize them. So what's the point? You might as well got you a darn solid wide receiver, but that would make sense, right? You got your backup quarterback in there. Why are you running him into the fire or hoping that he's just going to make the same magic that Lamar makes, because that's literally the offense that you run? That's my issue, right? I've said this before. I'm more concerned, and this is every single week, right? This is every single week, and against the Falcons included. I'm more concerned about coaching and the lack thereof than I am the execution by the players. I know there's drops. I know there's guys not open, right? I know there's opportunities to go forward on fourth down. I know the defense is playing pretty lights out right now, but you know who's not executing as much as we think they are? The coaching staff. What has Greg Roman done this season to adjust? Dude couldn't even take accountability this week and say at worst, yeah, we got to be better, and that's on me too. That's at worst, right? Like, people do that and it's not even their fault. Like, that's at worst. At worst, you say, we got to be better. Me too. I got to find some ways to get some guys open. If we're running the ball like that, I got to find some ways to maybe work off of that run game a little bit better. Maybe add a couple of new wrinkles. I'll be in the lab this week, right? Because there's a difference between working your hardest at something and just not being successful at it, as opposed to simply just being complacent in what you do and what you are good at, right? We all know Greg Roman's a great run game specialist. He's a great run game coordinator, or whatever you want to call it. But he has never found a way to evolve. And now, after I listened to him last week, he got to go, right? Because there's no accountability there, right? And I feel like, to my opinion, in my opinion too, that starts with Harbaugh too. Harbaugh hasn't been really taking accountability. It's been all back on the players, right? Oh, we didn't execute it as well as we should have, right? Well, what about that fourth down? Oh, well, we ain't gonna talk about that. Yeah, it was the players, right? And for example, a lot of times it's the play. It's the coach's decision to say, "Hey, we gonna go for it right here." You know who that falls back on if you don't get it, especially if the play is a good play or whatever. It goes back on the coach, right? If you miss the throw, it still goes back on the coach. Good call, but maybe you should have took your points. Maybe we shouldn't have had enough. Maybe we shouldn't have leaned on that in that way at that time. So like I said, I think offensively, to recap, the Ravens should win this game, right? They should. They should. This is one they need. They need to win this game, and they need to hope for the help that they want out of the rest of the league this week, because the Bengals are in, the Ravens are not. I don't really know how, but whatever. Whatever. Throw the math at me later, but that's just how it is. So if the Ravens want to get in, it starts with a win, because that's what they can control. The rest of it, you just got to figure out, right? The rest of it will come as it comes. So we'll see what happens, right? We will definitely see what happens, as hopefully there's some health coming back, and I know Marcus Peters is hurt too, so that's big on the defensive end, but I think the defense will still be good. Because I think, the Falcons are young too, but I think they'll have a pretty decent offensive outing, but I think the Ravens at worst will bend but not break, right? They'll get a couple turnovers off of it, especially Drake London's out there and Kyle Pitts is out there, so I mean there's definitely talent out there, for the defense to defend. But like I said, I'm not worried about the defense right now at this point in time, because even though I'm going to blame them if I'm going to blame them if the Ravens lose, right? Like, at the end of the day, the defense is going to hold their own. It's going to be up to the offense, and the coaching staff more than the offense, right? It's going to be up to the coaching staff to be great in this game and showcase over these last couple of weeks before you get into the playoffs that, hey, we're ready for this, right? We've been there, we've done that, right? And the crazy part is, like, it's crazy to not have faith in an organization when Harbaugh has won a Super Bowl, Greg Roman has been to a Super Bowl, and we're still sitting here thinking, like typically you put that on paper, you just throw that out there, right? Like it's wild, bro. This team got a former MVP, they got a top 5 defense, they got a top 5 rushing offense, right? Like, I'm sure a lot of people would say they got a top 5 line. Like, I'm throwing like the stats out there for you in general, so you can see, right? Former MVP, right? A head coach that won a Super Bowl, offensive coordinator that went to a Super Bowl, and and within the decade, right? Within the decade, and what does that mean anything, right? Like, I think on paper, I think initially you'll say, oh man, this team got a really good chance, but then when you consider that, I don't think anybody can truly trust his coaching staff right now. That's an issue with a guy who's won a Super Bowl, been to a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl and been to a Super Bowl. It's like, that's wild, right? Like it's wild that the trust. I think slowly but surely, we trust John Harbaugh and we trust Greg Roman less and less every week, right? At least Mike McDonald, you can say what you want about, the fact that he's had talent, that he's been given all this talent and all this. That's not his fault, right? At the end of the day, that's what the Ravens decided to do, and that's not his fault. On one hand, they gave Greg Roman everything he needed. They stacked the roster with 5 tight ends to start the year, even one that hasn't even played yet. And on the defensive end, they've also given Mike McDonald the talent that he needed to be successful. And Mike McDonald has improved since week 2, which was one of the worst collapses, and Greg Roman has not. That's a fact. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens this week, because it's definitely set. It's set to be a good one, but the Ravens should take care of business. By hook or by crook, get the win. That's the biggest thing. Get the win. But once again, it's a week to week league. If Greg Roman can call a good game that appeals to the guys that he has on the field, and then you have Lamar come back next week, and Greg Roman's calling this good game, and John Harbaugh is making these good decisions that, these decisions that actually make sense, and the defense is playing how they play, there's potential there. But we'll see how it plays out. Definitely hope you guys enjoyed. Didn't know this was going to go this long, but whatever. It happens, and I'm excited. Christmas Eve. Let's see how Christmas is going to play out. Right? Like, I think you'll feel a little better on Christmas, when you're getting that Christmas meal in there, and you're cracking into the presents, and you're hugging your family and all that. You're gonna feel a little bit better, right? You're gonna feel a little bit better if, and only if, the Ravens get this win this week, right? But as always, definitely hope you guys enjoyed. One more time, you can watch or listen to Flock Nation Speaks. Watch us on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to Flock Nation Speaks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, and Google Podcasts. But anyway, definitely hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys on the next one. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below. And come by every week. Leave your comments. Let me know what you're thinking. How can the Ravens turn this thing around? On the bright side, the Ravens haven't lost 2 games in a row this whole season, so there's a caveat to the loss against the Browns, I guess. But for whatever reason, those Browns games, I'm telling you, like, they tend to be the breaking point games for either the Ravens or Ravens fans, or a combination of both. But we'll see you guys on the next one. Let's see how they do against these Falcons this week. I expect big things, but we'll see what happens. Until